What are transitions on sales calls and why do they feel so yucky? And can you make them any easier than they feel right now? Absolutely. Stick around. We're going to talk about that today. If you're new to this channel, I am Jessie and I help online coaches, consultants, and small business owners who either have never had sales coaching or don't resonate with the coaching that they've had step into their brilliance and step into abundance through sales. I teach soul-based sales coaching that helps you really align with yourself and your business and connect authentically with your clients so that they are drawn to working with you. It is a way of looking at sales that totally shifts your life and your business in a much more positive direction. I'm so glad to have you here. So transitions happen in our life all the time. We experience them many times throughout our day, right? It's when we shift from one activity to another. It's when we shift from one topic in a conversation to another, from one moment in time to another. Think about when your kids, if you have kids, went from summer vacation to going back to school. There's this adjustment period, right? For everyone, they're kind of looking forward to going to school, and then you have to shift. There's a change in schedule. Everybody may be a little bit cranky because they're tired. There's a relief and excitement that they're back in school, both for you and for your kids. Everybody is dealing with this shift, right? And it's just the same on a sales call because you're shifting from one moment in time to another. It's one segment of the sales call to another. And if you're not intentional about understanding when the shifts happen during the sales conversation, they do get to feel awkward. There's this pause. There's this moment in time where you're just not sure what to say. And that is not the best way to come across to your potential client because you're supposed to be leading them confidently through the call. And if that awkward moment comes up, there's just this very minor shift in energy that could have them wondering, this person is supposed to be an expert. And no, maybe you're not an expert on sales calls, that you're an expert in what you do, but they're looking for you to lead them and be an expert in all of it, right? So we want to make sure that as we talk about this, that you have some guidance on how to deal with the transitions during your sales calls. So as you think about your sales conversation, I want you to take a moment, maybe grab a piece of paper and think about how the sales conversation flows. And if you were to look at it, you're going to find that there's different segments of the call where you talk about different things. You're going to start by introducing yourself and having just a kind of a quick get to know you moment with your client, right? And then it shifts into something else. And you're certainly going to want to shift to a time where you're asking them questions about their current situation, what they're looking for, what sort of end results they're seeking. Have they had experience with some other person trying to resolve their situation? And then you shift again. You're going to be talking about your offer. So there's these moments where you are shifting through a sales conversation and you want to anticipate those so that you can know how to script and or have that flow of the conversation move smoothly so that there's not this bump in the road. There's not this resistance or awkwardness going from one moment to the next. So take your piece of paper, think about your sales conversation. You may be using a sales script, you may not be. If you're using a sales script, take the script and just draw a line across the script where you're moving from one topic of the conversation to another. You should instinctively feel the shift in the conversation. So draw a line there. Or if you're just kind of winging it at this point and don't have any set script that you're using, which actually is my favorite way to go, not winging it, but not using a script. I'm not a huge fan of scripts. But if you are more organically having a conversation with your client, think about how that conversation flows and try and create blocks of different segments of the sales conversation and draw a line between each so that you can understand where those transitions happen. And once you've identified where those transitions happen in the conversation, you're going to be able to much more intentionally understand how to make that transition happen smoothly. So I like to deal with transitions almost like you would a paragraph in a book. You want to go from one section to the next, almost with like a period and then a return. And I say that's a kind of a visual to give you, but if you're wrapping up your introduction where you've met the person, hi, it's so nice to meet you, where did you find my information, what prompted you to book the call with me, thanks so much. You want to end that part of the conversation by saying something like, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to book this call with me. And so to serve you best, I'd like to take this step next. Maybe you're moving from the introduction of the call into your next segment. It would be something like this. You would say, listen, it's been so nice to meet you briefly here and understand what your objective is in setting this call with me. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to share with you how the call is going to flow. How does that sound to you? So I like to create that sentence in a new paragraph by saying, this is where I'm going next. How does that sound to you? And you ask a question. That's almost like putting a period at the end of the sentence, and it allows for the transition. You're getting their buy-in. They're not going to say, no, I don't want to go to the next step of the conversation, but you're asking an easy question, which is almost like, technically in sales, a mini close. This is what we're going to do next. How does that sound to you? And they're going to say, great. And you're showing them the path that you're taking and asking for their confirmation that they're good moving to that next step with you. That makes for a wonderful transition between one part of the conversation and the next. Another example, if you are moving from where you are learning about everything that they're looking for, what challenges they've been struggling with, what their end goal is, and you're moving into the next section of the conversation, which is typically where you're talking about your offer, it could sound something like this. Thanks so much for sharing all of that information with me. It really helps me get a good perspective on what you've been through, what you're struggling with, what your goals are. And that's so important for me to understand if I'm a good source of being able to help you. So what I'm going to do from here is share with you a little bit about some of my clients' stories and their situations and see if it sounds like we're a good fit to work together. How does that sound to you? And that makes for a very nice and smooth transition to the next step of the conversation. Are you getting a sense for how this works? The question, how does it sound to you after you summarize what you've just done and where you're going next, is a perfect means of transitioning to the next step of the call. So truly, transitions can be as simple as that. Once you've identified where you have transitions in your sales call, my recommendation is simply summarize what you've just talked about, typically thank them for sharing that information, and give them a little view, a little taste of where you're headed to next, and ask them how that sounds to them. That is the bridge that makes the transition smooth and flowing, and it gives you a plan to lead the client to the next step of the conversation. It's really very natural, very heart-centered, and really helps the client because they know where you're headed next. And that certainly positions you as an expert because you're leading them, which is what they're looking for from a coach and a small business, is to help them solve their problems. So when you lead them effortlessly through the call, through these transitions, you automatically earn their trust and show up as an expert and a trusted advisor in your potentially new client's eyes. I trust this video has been helpful, that you can take some of the suggestions here and apply them to your next sales conversation. That's my goal, is that you leave feeling energized and excited and looking at transitions just in a slightly different way that helps those moments not feel so awkward, where you are empowered and sharing the steps of the journey with your client in a way that feels very natural to you. If you've liked this video, please subscribe, hit the bell for future notifications, and share it with someone else who might benefit from the same information. And with that, I look forward to seeing you next week with more tips on how to have a non-pushy and very fulfilling and engaged and effective sales conversation. Have a great week, everyone.